Welcome to today's episode of Meet Me at Brunch. I'm Maddie Jones. I'm the head of marketing here at Brunch Agency. Today I've got with me Casta and Ben from the Klaviyo team, and we are going to be discussing all things email marketing. So I'll hand over to you guys to introduce yourselves a little bit.
Yeah, so my name's Casta. I'm a partner manager at Klaviyo and have the privilege of managing Brunch Agency. So really keen to talk about how wineries can leverage Klaviyo and email marketing more broadly. Ready to get stuck into it.
So I'm Ben, I'm on the customer growth team at Klaviyo. I help customers learn more about Klaviyo, new products, new features, and ultimately drive more revenue through the platform.
So Brunch Agency has worked with Klaviyo now for a few years. We're an affiliate partner for you guys. As many of our clients would know, we recommend the Klaviyo email system and CRM system to the majority of the wineries that we work with. A lot of you guys are already on Klaviyo, which is awesome. And then there's a lot of other ones out there that are using different systems. So today we've got the best practice system in-house to talk through email marketing for wineries, why it's one of the most important channels in your marketing toolkit, and some tips and tricks for how to leverage best practice for emails and making sure that you're getting the right pull through for your database. All right, before we do that, one of the things that we always do here at Meet Me at Brunch is that we like to ponder our marketing while we're drinking a glass of wine. As per usual, Georgie, our producer, has put together a mystery wine for us, of which we can tell that it's red at this point. These boys are going to play along and they're going to see how good their wine skills are. We know their email marketing skills too.
Yeah. I don't know about the wine skills. So what's the technique?
So have a sniff, then give it a little swirl.
I like the little swirls like this I've seen on TV.
And then have another swirl. And maybe just think immediately about 2 to 3 smells you think you might be able to identify.
Okay, I think one will be lucky, but I'll try three.
It's fruity. Is it black blue fruit or is it more red fruit?
I'm going to say red, but I could be wrong.
I reckon it's more red fruit too. So right now we've got a red fruited red wine. We'll sort of narrow this down as the episode progresses.
Okay.
It's definitely not a Pinot.
Okay.
Because you can already tell from the colour of it in particular. Yeah. It's looking quite medium bodied to me.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, we're narrowing it down.
We're narrowing it down.
Absolutely.
I'm going to have a taste though.
Let's have a taste.
That's actually quite nice.
That is nice.
It's a bit more of like a lighter red, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
I mean,
a lighter
that's
red.
quite medium bodied. It's got the tannins in it are very soft, but the acidity is very bright.
Okay.
Like it's feeling like it's a bit racy. Email is the biggest generator of revenue for wineries, and we see that really consistently across the board. So let's chat a little bit about why that is. From my experience in the wine industry and for working with our clients, the major reason why it's the biggest driver of revenue is because you're talking to people that are already connected to the brand.
Yeah, I think you're talking to your community and the people that love your brand most directly, and you're reaching out to them quite frequently as well through email, as well as the ROI. You're going to get the largest ROI probably in your marketing stack through email as well. But I think it's that personal, direct approach. You're going straight to people's inbox, so the messaging really resonates if you do it properly. And that is why it's such an important channel.
With email list, you own that information already. Like you have some sort of history with the customers that have either subscribed or bought from you previously. Unlike social media marketing, for example, where we don't know where those followers have come from, they might drop off, whereas emails, you own them. So you have that understanding of who your customer base is already, and you can really tailor your comms to that market.
They're on your list because they've had some kind of a brand experience.
Yeah,
they've either come to your cellar door, they've interacted with you at an event.
Bought online, maybe.
Yeah, you exactly bought online and then have signed up to email marketing from there, but they've already made a choice to be connected to your brand. And so they tend to be the most valuable asset that your business has is your email list.
Yeah.
100%. So we know that email marketing is the most important revenue tool in a winery's toolkit, but there's a lot of ways in which I've seen wineries get their email marketing wrong.
Yeah, I think it's a big night and day difference between the wineries that really nail it and they get it down pat and the wineries that maybe use it more traditionally and don't really see the full value that's out there now with email marketing. And what I mean by that is like personalization and breaking down your database and putting people in different categories based on their interests or what wines they like or what spend they have is really, really important in getting the most results. Whereas if you send to a broad audience and you send the same email to a large database, you're not getting that personalization. And when the customer receives the email, it doesn't feel like you know their journey and their experience with the winery. Yeah. So that's where I see the biggest difference at the moment.
One of the biggest problems that I see is that wineries who tend to blast their comms out without properly considering if that message is right for everybody in that database without proper segmentation. I just think it's a really missed opportunity there because it's not a lot of work to tailor the comms.
It's not anymore.
No, it's not anymore. That's right. Especially using the Klaviyo platform. Like, it's not a lot of work to tailor comms to specific segments. So that's definitely one of the biggest mistakes I think I see wineries make, mainly also because one of the biggest things that I see from that type of blasting is just churn, email churn. You get unsubscribe rates. You can also see it where databases become very tired, where they're constantly being asked to connect with something that doesn't quite resonate with them, and they just get really tired of it.
Yeah, I see that all the time as well. Like, performance can decline if you're not personalizing and not getting that right, because why would I continue to open emails that don't resonate with me? If I've done it 5 or 10 times in the past, then you lose my interest slowly over time. And it's very hard to then build that reputation back up with each personal email.
It also gets annoying, like just getting the emails sent all the time.
About it yourself as a consumer. If it's not relevant to me, I don't stay.
You will unsubscribe to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's it. One of the other big mistakes I see wineries doing is constantly asking people to purchase and not having the balance right between content and engagement versus asking them to do something. Essentially, if this is your most engaged or warmest audience lead, it needs to be treated like a relationship.
I think now it's somewhat noisy in the email space because everyone's aware of email marketing. To get through the noise, you do need to put in the effort and make it either educational or tell the story behind the winery. If you send too many salesy emails, you're probably going to get fatigued customers. But if I hear your story, who's behind the winery, what inspires that winery, then I'm emotionally invested. Then I'm going to open your emails and I'm probably going to buy more rather than just seeing an email with a 10% off discount, which over time gets old.
I would actually say this to wineries because it's a really easy thing for them to check. Go and have a look at your email revenue over the last 12 months. And if you think that you potentially might be at risk of offering too many opportunities for customers to buy, you will see a decline in the amount of sales that happens over the last 12 months if you're hitting them with a request for purchase every single time. So yeah, it's a pretty easy way to check. Just have a look at the metrics in your emails and just look at whether or not you think you might have purchase decline. And if you do, I'd say it's probably a good time to reevaluate your email strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. Would completely agree with that.
Let's have a little small sniff of this. It's changed a little bit in the glass, hasn't it?
I'm not a wine drinker, but I would buy this and drink it quite happily.
And do you have to aerate it? Is that what it's called?
It really depends on the wine.
Okay.
This one's had a little bit of airing because Georgie has decanted it into this lovely carafe.
Okay, yep.
It smells quite young.
Yeah.
And vibrant and bright and fresh. Predominantly fruit. If there's oak in this, it's very subtle for me. It doesn't sort of smell very, vanilla-y or coconutty or toasty or smoky.
Yeah, I love the colour.
One of the other areas that I suppose I'm be really keen to address today, because this is the major pet peeve for me when I'm working inside people's databases, is how to properly set up a list versus a segment versus a tag and how they should all be used. And if you do get that set up correctly, the power is to the times 10. So do you want to talk me through a little bit about what you see as best practice for how a winery should set up their account?
I think probably before we even do that, distinguish the difference between a list
Yes.
and a segment.
Good idea.
If you can think of like a list as a storage cabinet or a filing cabinet, you've got everything in there, and then the individual folders inside that filing cabinet are kind of like your segments.
For best practice sake, you should have all your data, email addresses, mobile numbers going onto one list. And then you have your one big list with all of your profiles there, but they haven't been broken down at all. And so that's where all your data feeds into. And then off that list, we build out our segments that we need. So it might be everyone who's purchased in the last 6 months or everyone who's made 3 purchases in the last month. Then we can build those segments out and use those strategically on that personalization piece as well. You should really only have 1 or 2 lists. You shouldn't have too many lists, and then you build all your segments out.
Yeah, so for example, one of the things that I commonly see with wineries is that overuse of lists where they can have 10, 12 different, lists inside there. I think the thing for people to understand is that lists are static.
What you import into that list is what is going to exist, and it won't update.
It won't update automatically. Whereas if you create one list that has absolutely everything in it, and then you just add to that as you go, when you actually set up the segments are based on a criteria that if the data point in the list matches that criteria, for Klaviyo, it will automatically shuffle that person into that segment.
Yep.
You don't need to worry about, I was at that event the other day, I have I uploaded that list correctly? It's like, no, if they're in there, they're in the event segment. If you create a segment that basically says any data that's been captured at the Melbourne Good Food and Wine Festival, and that's your segment, when the data's added into the list, if it matches the criteria for the segment, it will automatically pull there and you don't have to update.
Yeah,
and it means when you go back to the same event next year, you can use the same segment and just set some date ranges on it, and it just keeps everything clean.
And this is what I really love about Klaviyo. It's such a powerful tool that it automates that. Like you don't have to manually upload a list anymore. Like it just happens in the back end, which means you can get creative in other emails that you want to run or tapping into new segments.
And one of the things I really love about working with Klaviyo is that it's very easy to actually tag how data is coming into Klaviyo list. You have a sign-up form in Cellar and there's, a little QR code and you scan and it goes to a landing page that you can set up with a Klaviyo form that fills out. You can tag that person is signed up from Cellar. So even though they go into the major list, you can still filter that by the fact you can still find who your Cellar sign-ups were. If you have a Shopify website, for example, and someone purchases, that data will automatically be available inside Klaviyo because they're completely connected. So you don't actually need to do any manual typing of email addresses ever.
Never.
You should never have to do that. If you set up the account correctly, it should just all pull in automatically into one list. You set up your segments and away you go from there. Another really good way to use segments, in particular for wineries who often have their trade lists separately.
I see that a lot.
And that gets really hard to then maintain because the trade lists, they change all the time. This person's got the account, new one's signing on, this one's not here anymore. The trade lists move around a lot. And so having that as a segment as opposed to a list means you don't have to stress about getting all of your distributors to constantly be updating who's involved with what.
Absolutely. I think what makes that so easy on Klaviyo, which helps to understand it, is Klaviyo was built as a data platform first. It wasn't email originally. Our founders, AB and Ed, they built a data platform that had everything you could need on a customer profile level and then added email, and then as the years went on, added SMS. And so all that data, like you said, on every customer profile, it'll say who I am, what I've ordered, how I first joined up to the winery.
When you've clicked a particular product,
any product I've viewed, all that data lives on each profile. And so it's really powerful to then use that throughout your email marketing.
Well, that's where I feel as well that Klaviyo's become more than that email marketing platform, that it is actually a great CRM in a way as well. Do you want to talk through maybe some of the way Klaviyo can be used as a CRM?
Yeah, so it was a natural progression for Klaviyo, I think, coming from that data background, is that we added email and then reviews, SMS, and so on and so forth. And now we have this one platform where you really can manage every customer touch point and relationship easily from one place. And it's a lot easier to do that than have multiple different tools. If you have email in one place, SMS in another, and maybe reviews from somewhere else, it gets quite confusing. And the tech stack cost adds up a lot. And so Klaviyo's transition to, the world's first B2C CRM is just to try and make it easier for small, medium businesses and wineries to have one place to manage all their emails, all their messaging and communications.
The fact that if you have Klaviyo, you can really drill down to specific customer touch points. And I think that's really powerful because a lot of the software that's out in the market, it is mainly B2B. You don't really have that level of data. So you can get really creative in how you actually then use that information in your email marketing.
Where it becomes really powerful is the fact that you guys integrate with a couple of other really key platforms for the wine industry, like Shopify and also WineHub, which are some major tech platforms that we recommend here at Brunch. In terms of having that really comprehensive B2C, so business to consumer, it really creates that really holistic CRM program whereby all of the sales data from Shopify can be pulling straight into Klaviyo. You can be looking at how much revenue emails are generating. You can create segments based on really fine detail and be really, really specific with it, which gives you ultimately a lot of power.
That's so important in the wine industry because I think people buying wine is such a personalized experience. Even you explained it before, it's very fruity, like the color, people love that about wine. And so adding that element in your email marketing will really just elevate your winery and people will want to buy more.
All right, so now we're going to move on to talking a little bit about what kinds of emails wineries should be sending to their database. We touched a little bit on the importance of engagement versus revenue driving, but one of the other major tools that not just Klaviyo, but obviously a lot of other email platforms use is email automations. Talk me through a little bit around the email automations that you guys recommend through Klaviyo.
I think to start, we should probably differentiate campaigns and flows. So flows are our automations. So if I visited the website and added something to my cart and then exited off the website, I might then receive an abandoned cart flow, which will automatically know Ben added this wine and send me an email an hour later saying, hey, you're still interested in this wine? Like I saw you added it to cart. So that's an example of an automation. Whereas campaigns are your sort of weekly sends out to a segment or a list. Whereas, the automations will do it for you in the background around the clock.
So what are some of the automations that you would recommend for wineries?
To start, I think one that's sometimes overlooked is like the welcome email. When someone first signs up, a lot of people do it, like it's the most common flow, but they don't do it well, in my opinion, because that's the first time if I've made an order, I'm going to get that welcome series. And so it's my introduction to the winery. Who's behind it? What's the story? How long have you been in business? Those are the things I want to know. And you can build out a few automations over that first week or 2 weeks to really get me into the brand. It should really be educational and trying to get me attached to the winery.
And it doesn't have to just be one welcome email.
No.
That's what I love about the way the automations work, you write in a flow, is that you can actually set it up that you have the first day that someone purchases, the first email is triggered, and then a couple of weeks later or a week later, there's a second email that's triggered, and then 2 or 3 weeks after that, there's another email that's triggered. You can actually step out the story over multiple weeks. That's all automated.
And because of that, like you can really show off your winery, and like think that will encourage, and to Ben's point about talking around like, you know, where you're located, like the type of wines you create, you know, who you employ, like I think that encourages the loyalty as well, and people buy more if they know more around your winery. And it's that idea of that soft selling. Yes, they can buy your wines and whatnot, but you kind of like need to sell yourself in a way.
Yeah, I get what you mean. One of the other things with the welcome series is that you can actually split it. Have they purchased product? Yes. Okay, then they get this email series. If they haven't purchased product and they've just signed up to the newsletter, they get this series, which may have more of an opportunity to purchase or showcase the product range. And then the other flow may have more of that branded story. And you can automate all of that. It's just so easy.
And again, it's like the idea of like Klaviyo, we can really get creative in like what you want to present. If like a particular bunch of people click on a button or don't click on a button, it's really powerful in that respect.
You can segment flows as much as campaigns. So you could say people that have ordered X amount of wine over the last 6 months and then build out different flow messaging for all those features. You can get as advanced as you want with it. But I think even just to start, having more than one welcome email and really building out the winery, who's behind it, what do you stand for, what are the values of that winery, that's a really good place to start. Because it's your first point of contact essentially a lot of the time, and first impressions matter. If you just get one email that wasn't really done too well, then it's hard to readjust that perception.
With the abandoned cart email as well, because there's always a lot of debate over this. What is your opinion on the best times to send an abandoned cart email? Would you do it straight away? Would you do it the next day? Would you do it 6 hours later? What do you find from your experience is the sweet spot?
So from my experience, I always think the first abandoned cart email in that flow, so whenever they first exited, should be triggered within the first hour, in my opinion, from what I see. But as with all things on Klaviyo, testing and A/B testing is always going to prove you right or wrong. So you can do one test that's half an hour after and another test that's 2 hours after and see what performs better over a week or a month. And then you know for sure what you're doing is actually correct, because it can change from region to region or demographic to demographic. So it's always good just to test, and whatever you think might be right, test it and prove yourself right or wrong, and then keep evolving from there.
Do you think that there should be more than one abandoned cart email?
Yeah, I think 3 is the sweet spot.
3 is the sweet spot?
I think 3. 2 or 3. I think if you do more than that, chasing that on sale, because the abandoned cart email is quite salesy. You've seen they've added something to cart. It's difficult in that flow to build out a story, or much more than, hey, you added this to your cart, here's our review of this one. But other than that, I think 3 is like a good spot. I think if you do more than 3, it can get a bit much.
Bit spammy.
Bit spammy.
That's fair enough. One of the other areas to touch on here is Wine Club. Wine Club is such an important part of a winery business. They are usually, the highest revenue drivers. They're usually the most engaged buyers. They often locked into some form of subscription. Not always. It can be a more pay-as-you-go type wine club. But a lot of the models have a subscription base. What would you say to wineries that are looking to maybe try and automate some of their wine club processes?
In my research, I saw one winery that after someone purchased once or the second order of a one-off order, they would then have a flow that really chased that subscription and wine club thing, and at least just educated the customer on, hey, we have this wine club. This is how you can enter or sign up for it. And we saw you ordered once off. 30 days later, hey, maybe it's time for a subscription, so you don't have to think about it again.
That particular case, last one's like, oh, that actually makes it easier for me just to then sign up that way. You've done that through that email marketing process.
Yeah. And I think another way as well to think about with your wine club is that if you've got them all properly segmented,
true,
we talked about before, it's then also really easy for your wine club managers to direct comms directly to the wine club, because often I find that section of the database needs really specific types of communications.
Yeah.
They're often being invited to private events.
Exclusive.
There's often wines that aren't available on the website that are being offered exclusively to these groups of people. So you can certainly have a great segmented approach for that. I think the other thing that you can do is potentially look at setting up some automated flows whereby you're regularly touching base with your wine club members, you know, and keeping them connected to brand as
absolutely.
well. Wineries will be able to tell like where the majority of their churn rate is. So I worked with a winery last year and we worked out the fourth order, that's where their biggest churn rate was. And so we actually, using Klaviyo, we set up an automated flow that when it hit the 12-month subscription, which is that was the third order, it then actually triggered an email with an anniversary gift that was basically like, thank you so much for supporting us. You're a valued wine club member. We're sending you a gift, essentially. And it actually helped to reduce the churn rate for the fourth order, which is another way that you can use systems like Klaviyo to set up those special automated flows.
I think if you're a champion customer of a winery or a brand for that matter, and you're a really good customer and you don't get any messaging that acknowledges that, or at least understands that, hey, you're one of our VIPs, it can kind of leave a bad taste in your mouth because now so many wineries are doing it. So if I'm your best customer and I'm always regularly shopping and interacting with the winery, if the messaging doesn't reflect that and I'm treated like an ordinary customer, it's kind of, again, that personalization just doesn't match and you're not going to see the best results.
Where do you see the best success between the balance of revenue driving and content? And how do you see the old school email newsletter and its place in today's market?
Yeah, so it's a good question because it evolves over time quite a lot. So I think now educational and meaningful communication is so much more important than the salesy. I think, in my opinion, around 60% of it should be educational or just not hard driving sales. And then you can have a few sprinkles of the sales and really trying to go for the revenue in between that. But I just think if you develop that emotional connection with a consumer, they're going to spend so much more money with the winery or the brand. And if you don't have that emotional connection and it's just quite salesy every week, you're going to lose interest and we're going to run into that fatigue problem where people know what the email says before they open it.
Do you guys have any thoughts on layouts for emails for wineries? What works, what doesn't work, what you see as best practice for email layouts?
I think, again, like to Ben's point around like the A/B testing, like see what works with your customers and stuff, but more broadly, like your font size, like where you put the colors. Do you use a rectangle box or like an oval box?
Yeah, what brand do you want your winery to have and what matches that? You need to be really thoughtful into, you know, who's your audience firstly, and then trying to build a brand that has the same sort of flow and content and structure throughout your flows and your campaigns. Otherwise you run into one email looks wildly different to another one and it's a very confusing perception in the customer's mind.
The brand's not consistent across the thing. It's like, what are they selling? No,
I 100% agree. I think it was HubSpot, it was a few years ago now, they did this big worldwide study around how much copy is actually read in an email. And it's so heartbreaking because we all put so much work into our copy. But the reality is that actually only about 16% of copy is read in an email. We'll always have way more people skimming than you do have them reading. So one of the things that I'm always harp on about for email design is make sure you have great headings, great subheadings, and enough pictures and graphic call-outs so that if someone is just skimming through that email, they can probably still pick up the general gist of what you were trying to say. The main thing is to actually stand back from your email, let go of your copy and think about, like, if I was to just read the headings, could I understand
what this
the general gist of what this email's about? The person that is building that EDM is building it on a desktop, sitting at their desk. But the reality is that the majority majority of people are going to be reading
yep.
this on their phone.
Mobile optimization.
Yes.
Which Klaviyo does really, really well.
I know it does. So switch into the mobile template, build it in the mobile template first, and then toggle the desktop template on and see if it's looking okay. Because if it's not optimized for mobile
You've lost 80% of people out the gate.
Yeah.
And on mobile, you can only read a very small amount of that email when you first open it. And that matters more than anything, as we know.
Yeah.
So that subject line and that first glance or call to action, on mobile, it's so small. Whereas desktop, you can see a lot more. So that needs to be, top of mind as well.
What is it that you think keeps people connected to a brand and why it's so important to grow that list?
The biggest one is keeping customers in the loop based on where they are in their journey. So you shouldn't send the same messaging to your top 20% as your bottom 20%. That just doesn't make sense. So that's the first place I would start. But then you need to also manage that journey because people don't stay in the same spot. So I could be, a top 10% VIP customer and then a year later be in a different position, in a different boat. And that messaging should resonate and you should be able to track where I am now. And so that's where I'd always recommend a winery start in that process.
Wineries are really diverse businesses. It's one of the great challenges of trying to find the perfect tech stack for a winery because there isn't really one holistic, perfect solution that integrates absolutely every single aspect of their business because they are growers and agricultural producers, they're manufacturers, then they're hospitality businesses, then they're retail businesses, and they're e-commerce businesses, and they're wholesalers. Like, it's nuts. And so there are so many potential opportunities for capturing data, so many different opportunities. How do you think wineries should handle that?
You have your traditional pop-ups on the website where people can sign up for 10% off their first order or something like that. But then the areas that I see wineries maybe not utilize their data as well is the offlines, like the trade and the retail. Capturing those email addresses in those places and using them online is really powerful. Like if I visit a winery in person, maybe I buy some wine and then I get an email 2 or 3 weeks later saying, hey, thanks for coming in and buying. Like here's an online offer or something of that sort, or here's our wine club. That tracks my journey as a customer. And really, obviously, then I'm very invested in that winery because it tracked me from being an in-store to an online. Yeah. So things like that go a long way.
Yeah. And I think one of the things to understand is that doesn't have to be a manual process anymore.
No.
If you have got the right system, you should never have to have people physically writing out their data for you.
Yeah.
It should be able to go immediately from the customer into your Klaviyo account via a QR code or some kind of online form and just pull straight in. So you shouldn't have to be double handling. If you're going to a trade show, you shouldn't have to have all of these emails on bits of paper. It should be able to go straight into the Klaviyo account, or into another email CRM system because it's time wasted otherwise. It means that, you're just making more work for yourself.
Yeah. And if it's more work for you to manage all these email addresses in a manual way, then it's so much harder for the customer too. They're having that same frustration of getting their data to you. So the easier it is and less friction there is, whether it's social media, you can click once now and sign up to an email form, or like you said, a QR code. If you make it easy for the customer, you're going to get more data, which is the ultimate goal.
Yeah, and you're also going to be able to talk to them quicker before the opportunity has passed you by.
Yeah.
Because if I've been at Cellar and I've had a great experience and I've bought wine and you send me an email that asks for a Google review, if I've had a great time, I'm probably going to give you a Google review. But if you don't have that
if you send it a month later, you've lost me.
You've lost it.
Remember.
It's not relevant anymore. Exactly. I'm not buzzing from the high that I've just had at the winery and then suddenly there's an email in my inbox as I'm, on the way home, sitting in the passenger seat. I'm like, I'll give them 5 stars. Great time. Right?
Data pulls through instantly now. There's no excuse. There's no lag between a couple of hours to populate. Everything is up in real time. If I purchase in person, that data exists instantly. And so that review email can come to me 3 minutes later.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be done.
It shouldn't ever have to be manual. And I think if wineries are doing it manual at the moment, it's a real opportunity for looking at upgrading their email platform.
Absolutely.
If their current email platform doesn't have the ability to do that, that's wasting time because you're paying someone by the hour to input data that you shouldn't have to be paying anyone to do.
Yeah. And I think, wineries have so little time on their hands to do everything because they have to wear so many different hats in that business. So the more automations you set up, which it takes an initial investment to set up some automations, then they're there forever. And they're firing around the clock every hour of the day for reviews or following up on someone's purchase, that sort of thing. So it's worth investing the time from a manual system to just automation as much as you can. And then it's done and you don't have to waste more time every week on manual.
Yeah. So what are some of the tips and tricks that you would recommend for wineries that are physically facing a customer to get them to part with their data? Because that's quite topical these days, isn't it? About data protection. People are quite reticent to hand over their emails. Am I going to get spammed all the time? What's it about? What do you see as best practice for ways for actually signing people up to your email database?
Yeah, I think step one's removing friction. So make it as easy as possible, which we've said, because then the conversion rate of getting that data is so much higher. But then I think also if there's trust there, like I said, I'm emotionally connected to this winery now. I've met maybe the owners or the people that work there, and I've learned about, you know, their business and their operation. My guard's down. I'm like, okay, I want to hear more from this winery. Whereas if you don't build that trust and then you ask someone for their data, that's when you can have friction. So things like QR codes and social media help remove that friction, but it's the emotional connection that's going to get people just to be willing and happy to give you their data because they want to hear more.
Yeah, and that actually brings me to a good point around customer service. We were talking a little bit about this offline around how important that piece of the puzzle is for not just collecting data, but then also maintaining that data and keeping that data connected over time.
You know, loyalty is such a big part of customer relationship management now, and most people have a loyalty program or a VIP club. But the reality is customer service and making sure people have a good experience goes further than any other loyalty offering or any point system. If I have a great experience and if I have an issue, I can easily get help and have a good experience in customer, relationship, then I'm loyal to the brand. You might not be able to track it as easily as a point system, but if you have that great service, the loyalty will be there. And engaged customers that have an emotional connection will spend triple. Yeah. That's all our data shows us. So customer service will always be number one, more than any extravagant loyalty program,
Yeah, people want to feel loved. They want to feel like they're special.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, just with so much advancement in AI, there's quite a lot of really exciting tools on the market for how to segment and set it up so that you don't really even have to lift a finger with how to properly segment your data. And again, this is where I always come back to just one list. Multiple segments, one list. If there's anything that you guys take away from today, just have one list.
Have one list, guys. One list.
Absolutely.
Klaviyo's got some really cool AI tools that are on the market now. Talk us through some of that.
Yeah, so we've incorporated AI throughout the platform now. AI gets thrown around a lot, and sometimes it's very effective and other times maybe not implemented as well. But on Klaviyo, for example, personalization and building out segments, it used to take a lot of time to do that to a really advanced level. Whereas now I can type in on Klaviyo, build me a segment of everyone who's ordered in the last year. I can type that sentence and it will spit out that segment for me. And then on the other side, you don't even need to always create those manual segments now because we automatically will create them. So with our latest feature, marketing analytics, we'll take all the profiles you have and say, these are your VIPs, these are your recent customers, these are your inactive or at risk of churning. And then you can tailor campaigns and flows to each of those groups. And it updates in real time. So if I became a champion customer tomorrow, I can go into the champion automation to say, hey, thanks for being a champion customer. That's all automatic now. Yeah. Whereas it used to have to be, you'd have to manually manage that process, which was a lot harder.
Set the filters around who's buying what.
Yeah, who's a champion.
Wineries can really take advantage of this AI. Like wineries have to wear many different hats. They're really busy. Like imagine having AI drawing analysis from your data and telling you how best to segment. Anyone can really use it.
There might be segments of data that you haven't actually considered using before or activating. When it's all in one big chunk, the idea of it can be quite
it's a bit daunting. Yeah,
how
absolutely.
How do I set all these things up? If you've got an AI tool that you can say, hey, can you just find all my wine club buyers for me? Yep, sure, I'll do that.
Absolutely. And the customer experience too, if I was a recent customer and then started spending a bit more and became a loyal customer, and there's messaging that gets sent to me that reflects that, the difference between a winery that does that and a winery that doesn't is night and day. That's why now the personalization is going to be the number one thing you can do to improve your email marketing.
Yeah, I think one of the big messages and one of the big takeaways, I suppose, from today for our wineries who are listening would be there is so much more possible on your email marketing platform than you're probably using. So really get in touch with the features. I would very much encourage people who are dipping a toe with Klaviyo if you haven't used it before and you're new to the platform. There is so many help videos and there's an entire academy and library. Yeah. If you're not sure, there will be a video for it somewhere.
Or a live training session or something of that sort. I do it week in, week out. There is so much you can do with Klaviyo and it can be a bit daunting, I guess, at first because the capability is so high. But our academy course is so easy to just get up to speed on what you need to know.
Yeah, there's lots of different features, but it's also important for the wineries to understand how those features can be applied to them in a real world
It's the implementation that you can have all the data in the world, but if you don't know how to action the data and unlock it, it's difficult.
The most important data for wineries comes from their cellar door. They've come to the venue, they've had brand experience, they've potentially bought some wine. You want to be making sure that you connect that person into your flow, because
Absolutely.
that is a missed opportunity.
Huge missed opportunity.
So lots of different ways that you can do that. You could potentially offer a small incentive for purchase. If they are signing up to the database and they've already decided to make a purchase of a bottle of wine for the day, you might give them a 5% discount or something to entice them.
Yeah.
Maybe make the tasting complimentary. If you're a winery that doesn't necessarily like to look at constantly offering a discount, it's maybe more about offering the value add. I think as well, like one of the things that is important for people who are signing up to a winery database is to understand what they're going to get. It's like, if I give you my email, what am I getting in return?
Yeah.
And I think making that really clear for customers at the start is really a great way of getting them to part with their data. Even if I'm not purchasing a dozen, maybe I'm only buying 1 or 2 bottles, and if I go out the door, you potentially will never hear from me again, because I've been on a wine tour and I've been to 3 other wineries on the same day, and I'm having a great time with my friends, and I'm having sort of multiple different brand experiences. If I'm offered an incentive to sign up, maybe that there's a reason for me to come back. So it's a complimentary tasting for 2. The next time, maybe there's an incentive to come for lunch or something.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for signing up the data. I've seen wineries offer competitions. Everybody loves a bit of a lucky dip draw. Go in the draw to win a 6-pack of wines every 3 months or every month, or, whatever. A lot of wineries do this. A lot of wineries do it. I'm yet to see a winery properly shout about the winner of that on their social media, and it quickly loses relevancy.
Very quick.
And this is an area, again, like you could easily segment who are my new customers, my new database signups in the last 30 days. And you can actually send everyone in that, look, Melissa was the winner of the 6-pack. However, here's a second chance prize, 10% off an online order.
Yeah.
And then they actively can see that the data that they gave you has been acted on, and that there was a real competition and somebody did win that 6-pack and that they have faith in the brand from there.
Yeah, I think that's a really important call out. Make noise of these giveaways that you're doing. And another thing sort of similar to giveaways that I see brands doing really, really well with is collaborations. So it doesn't have to be another winery, but you could collaborate with a brand that also has similar relevance to your customer base and collaborate with them. And then you both can drive signups together and you can share audiences, which works really, really well if you can find a good collaboration.
Let's give our wineries some advice on some quick wins that they can easily action for getting the best out of their email marketing. We've talked a lot today about my number 1 pet peeve, which is having one list. One list, multiple segments. If you don't know how to do that, I would seriously recommend that you research it, find resources that are appropriate to the platform that you're on. If you're already on Klaviyo, the Klaviyo team has got a whole bunch of material that is very helpful for learning how to set up a list versus a segment and where to use tags. If you're not already doing that, I would say get familiar with that as soon as possible. Any other quick wins for you guys?
We're talking before around like mobile optimization. If you're on a rush, subject lines, I want it to be quick and flashy. I want it to be interesting. Don't just say buy now. Make it interesting, like a 1967 Pinot has dropped or something. I don't know if that's a legitimate thing, but make it interesting. It's as simple as that. But
do some A/B testing and find out what works. I think as well, one of the tools that I use in Klaviyo quite a lot is the AI assistant. Type in what your vague point is of your email, and then it will spit you out
some examples.
And great subject
Helps
lines.
when you have a bit of writer's block. You can just get some help from the AI assistant. I think the easiest wins that I see week in, week out is the automations. I know we've touched on automations a lot, but you can create an automation, for example, that will tell you the expected date each customer will order next. So Ben is most likely to order on the 22nd of June. Yeah. You may be expected to order on the 30th of August, but it knows that based on your purchase frequency, and you can just set up that flow. So on that date, when that date comes around, I'll get a message for a product because it knows that's the date I'm probably most likely to order. I'll order soon. And that sort of automation just saves you so much guesswork on the campaign side.
Yeah, absolutely. I think automations as well, it's just low-hanging fruit. That you don't actually have to actively ask someone to be buying or sending them an offer.
It's happening while you sleep.
Yes.
Yeah. And like you turn on the abandoned cart flow, it is a night and day difference on the revenue side. Like you will just see that money coming.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like a lot at the start, but when you look at it over a 12-month period, you realise...
It's quite significant.
Yeah, it is quite significant. Lists, versus segments. We want to have great subject lines and intro copy as well to sort of entice that open and that click. We want to make sure that we're mobile friendly.
Yeah, mobile friendly.
First,
Optimization.
always. And that we want to make sure that we've got lots of great automations and flows set up. One of the things I would also add to that list is that we want to make sure that our layout of our email is skim readable, that you've got your headings and your subheadings and any call to action buttons laid out in a sense that if you were to just quickly skim through that email, you can still get the point, still get a bit of a brand experience with the visualization of whatever images.
No one wants a big wordy email.
Touching on Klaviyo's usability, like there's so many templates out there. I know there's probably viewers here being like, oh my God, like where do I start? Like how do I create an actual template? Well, Klaviyo's got you covered. There's so much there that we can just use offhand.
No, you don't need a designer.
Yeah, you don't need a designer.
No.
Yeah, I mean, you can if you want to, but you really don't. Like, it's really that easy to use.
Yeah, and a lot of the templates as well, they've all been designed with best practice in mind. So if you're not sure,
true.
pick a layout.
Fill in the blanks.
Yeah, that's been recommended.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. That brings us back to having a little bit of a chit chat about our wine.
Our mystery wine.
Mystery wine. So again, the red fruit's coming out. I'm getting quite a lot of spice on this. That red fruit's still there, but the other things are starting to lift out of the glass a little bit more. So I'm getting those herbal, slightly more herbal tones, bit of spice in it.
They're not as subtle anymore.
Yeah.
You can pick up on them
a little
slightly.
bit of black olive in there.
Really?
As well.
Okay, that's a very specific.
You've got a really good sense of smell if you can smell that.
It feels to me like it's from a slightly warmer region. I don't know, like staring at Georgie because
Give away a hint.
Yeah, she's got tells. You can start.
If we guess the right vineyard, she'll probably give a little.
Yeah,
little sign,
she starts twitching a bit.
Well, my default is, I don't know, Adelaide, but that's not a warm region.
You think it's a South Australian? I do actually think it potentially is a South Australian wine.
McLaren, maybe?
I potentially think it might. The red fruit and the sort of spicy tones coming through, the medium bodied and the sort of very pulled back oak, if there is even any oak in it. I'm not convinced. I think it might be a Grenache.
Okay.
Or a very, very mid-weight Shiraz.
My guess ended at McLaren. I was happy I narrowed it down to the region.
How bright that colour is.
So it's quite young?
Yes, I think this is
quite
very
young.
young.
Okay,
so I'm going to probably say 2023 for this one.
Okay.
Well, we're going down to the year.
You guess the month?
Older, no. But I think it might be McLaren Vale Grenache.
Okay, that's our guess then.
Were we right? Georgie's going to do the reveal. What have we got? Oh, yeah, you're right.
That is so impressive that you got that. Wow.
Oh, that is spectacular.
Do you do that often? Do you get it right? Is that quite common?
I generally pick the grape variety,
Right.
but I don't always get the region.
That's pretty impressive.
But when I realised it was Grenache, I thought, oh, come on, it's got to be McLaren.
Wow, very impressive. I need to up my wine game. Maybe next time I come back, I'll be able to guess it off the bat.
This beautiful, gorgeous bottle comes to us from Yangarra.
I love the purple.
Gorgeous friend
I
from
love the
Yangarra.
purple.
So thanks so much. And it's a 2022, so we weren't far off with the...
But you said 2022.
You did say 2022.
You second guessed a little bit.
I did. I was on the fence about that.
Yeah, I love that.
But I'm feeling pretty smug right now.
Very smart, as you should be.
All right, so let's wrap
Yes,
this
we've
up.
got a podcast.
It's been spectacular to have you guys in and just give some insights. We're on the ground with wineries every day, but it's really great to sort of take that bird's eye view back and just go, what makes really good email marketing? It's such an important revenue channel for wineries, and there's, in my opinion, a lot of fruit left on the vine there. We're going to have a resource at the end of this that's going to have some fantastic insights on winery email marketing, which you guys have kindly helped put together for us. There's going to be some really great takeaways in there with some interesting data and statistics on best practice. So I encourage everyone to go to the show notes afterwards and download our resource. But otherwise, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Cheers again.
Cheers.
Oh, this is a delicious wine.
I was scared the dog was going to come in and open the door.
Yeah, whose dog? That dog's so cute.
That's so cute.
Is that, was it the little dog or the big dog?
Little dog.
Harley,
that's Harley.
Trying to open the door. Yeah, I was like, I want to come in.
He was just wagging his tail.
So cute.
Yeah.